Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down and dissect the latest and the greatest in film, and it definitely is the greatest this week, with a fantastic Adam Sandler Netflix film. As you can see, if you're watching the VOD over on YouTube here, you'll be seeing Jackson's distraught, disgusted face. He was the one that actually said that he was depraved, but now it's gone a little bit too far, especially with my challenge of making him watch the Human Centipede 2 as well. We're going to get into all that and more, guys. This is Dan Allen Movies talking, and I'm joined by the man himself, Jackson, a.k.a. Marshall on Film. How you doing, mate?
Why, oh why, did I come up with the Halloween Revenge Tour? In fact, it might only be week 2, but heading into part 2, it's being renamed. This month, we're going to call it Dan's Inferno, because you, Dan Allen Movies, have put me through the ringer, knowing full well we'd be reviewing the latest Adam Sandler Netflix comedy in quotation marks for those watching on YouTube. You teamed up this film with another shocking, terrible release. In fact, listeners, I watched 2 films this week for the We Watch This Movie podcast. One of them was repulsive, morally reprehensible, lazy, uninspired, full of mean-spirited characters, an unlikable protagonist, bereft of any humor and anything endearing. And the other movie was the Human Centipede 2.
That joke was too on the nose, man. As soon as you started it, I knew where it was going. Anyway. You couldn't help yourself, could you?
You couldn't help yourself by ruining my joke. First, you have to ruin my life for this podcast. Now you take all the wind out of my sails. It's the Dan Allen Show.
Well, there you go, guys. He's actually left the room. For any of our VOD listeners, watchers, you would be seeing him now. Here he comes back now, trying to recoup and try and get his calmness back. You're all right, Jackson? Just had to leave the room for a second there. Look, we've all been there. I was there, a few episodes ago for Midsummer, Lighthouse. We've all been there. But Jackson, I mean...
Don't forget High Life. This
is the first time that you've ever gone to this sort of low. So, I mean, I've been there multiple times. So, I'm the one that knows this better than anyone. But why don't we get straight into it, Jackson? Hubie.
We do, Dan Allen Movies, and you've already butchered the title of the movie.
Hubie Halloween, I call it.
Hubie Halloween. Fantastic. Why did we review this film for the podcast? Please tell our listeners.
So, Adam Sandler is probably the best actor in the world, up there with Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy. He'll probably be up for an Oscar for this film, so we had to cover it. And in all honesty, I love him. So I forced Jackson to watch this. I knew he'd hate it. And we had a fair idea of what the film was going to be going in, but sometimes they're so dumb that they're funny, and you can make a case that this is one of those films.
You were just a shameless Sandler fan, a Sandman fan, a Sand fan, you might even say.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand why. I mean, this guy now, for this week, we've watched the 6th and final film he's released for Netflix. I say he, Adam Sandler, through his Happy Madison production company, which none of their movies ever make any freaking money. I don't know why they keep producing them. This was filmed back in July 2019. And like I said, Adam Sandler had a $250 million deal with Netflix, with Ted Sarandos. This being the final film. Back in 2015, we had our first movie, The Ridiculous Six. What did you think of that, Dan?
Oh, that wasn't good.
Following up, it wasn't good, was 2016's The Do-Over. What did you think of The Do-Over?
It wasn't good either. But listen.
Following up, 2016 was 2017's Sandy Wexler. What did you think?
Geez, that was shocking.
Sandy Wexler?
That was shocking.
On to 2018, we saw the release of The Week Of. What did you think of The Week Of?
Probably the worst one.
And finally, Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston. We've all heard of this one. The most watched movie on Netflix in 2019, Murder Mystery. What did you think of Murder Mystery?
It was okay, but it wasn't good by any means. So all of them have been not good. We all know that. But
now,
I'm going to correct you. No. I've got to correct... Jackson, you said that his movies don't make money. Well, I've got the box office up here. 50 First Dates made 200 million USD. Just Go With It made 215. Grown Ups 300. Blended 128. They've got a good crowd there for low
numbers
budget.
Out of your ass. They are not making that much money, and they're not.
Yes,
low
they
budget.
are.
These are not low budget movies. These films, and I mean, more power to the bloke and his friends. They're excuses for him and those close to Adam Sandler to go on vacations to different exotic locations and just have a bit of fun. I'm all for that. That's fantastic, but at least give us something entertaining.
Have you seen Blended? It's him and Drew Barrymore, and it's 2014. It's somehow
I know what you're talking about.
The budget somehow is 40 million. Don't ask me how, but 40 million budget. It made 130 worldwide, so it's a profitable film.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, dead set. And you look through his catalog, a lot of them are, and Netflix have made their money back 10 times over. Murder Mystery in the top 10. This will be up there.
Dan, here's some stats for you.
Here we go.
Back in January of this year, it was reported that after we'd learned Hubie Halloween would be dropping, another 4 movies have been signed for Adam Sandler to produce, to star, to write. God only knows. His fingerprints will be all over them for Netflix. He's just come off the back of a 6-movie deal worth up to 250 million. The new one for 4 movies is worth 275 million, even more money. When this deal was signed, Netflix also let slip that audiences worldwide had spent an estimated 2 billion hours watching The Sandman on their service. 2 billion hours.
Insane.
It was also reported that throughout 2019, Murder Mystery had been streamed by 83 million households. And we finally have some conclusive data. I know we've discussed it here on the show before. Netflix will only count a stream, will only count the view if that movie has been watched at least 70% of its runtime. So anything over the 70% mark, they will count. Dan, when we do some number crunching, some maths, I want to give something a bit different and educational here for the listeners. If we look at 83 million households, if we consider that one of those households is worth an estimate of $8 USD per movie ticket, Murder Mystery may have brought in $240 million at the box office. So move over, Tenet.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Can I get the rewind button to go through this whole 2-minute rant again? So move over, Tenet.
That's a little bit smoother. Jackson, I got to read out. So Adam Sandler's Facebook page. How many likes do you think he's got on it? Now, to give you context, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the most followed man in America, has 300 million followers across the board. He has 50 million on Facebook. How many do you think Adam Sandler's got?
40.
47 million, 53 million following, okay? Here's some of the comments on the trailer. We love Adam's films. We love Grown Ups, and we all love how he always uses the same actors. Hubie was another great film. We watched this last night. Great actors, funny and entertaining. I love anything with Adam Sandler. I loved it. I don't care. I'll always be a fan. I also love Jack and Jill. I just saw it today and I loved it. Thank you for making this film. Super cute movie. Love your movie. Always brings me smiles. What I'm trying to say here is this guy brings the smiles for the family, okay? This film isn't targeted for you and me with our little critiques. We love Tenet, we love David Lynch. It's for the family to sit back, turn the brain off. The kids are going to love it. They're going to laugh their heads off. And there's a few jokes in there to keep the parents entertained along the way. That's what the film is designed for. His films have always been like that. And that's why he continues to have success. This guy is the most likable guy on moving pictures out there.
Dan, are frontal lobe lobotomies back in style? Because they're switching your brain off, and then there's totally brainless. And this is something else entirely.
But it knows
Last week, Dan Allen Movies, you asked me about what I thought of the horror genre, and I said that comedy horror I loved. You said comedy horror, they don't mix. Supposedly, Hubie Halloween is a comedy horror. It's definitely horrific, but there's not one joke in this entire film. I've got to stop. Please, give me 30 seconds to refresh. Roll the fucking trailer.
Halloween's upon us!
It's not Halloween without costumes.
Did that turn you on?
How is sucking on fake fingers supposed to turn me on?
Tricks. Treats. Monsters. And scares.
Danger is afoot.
Are you okay, man? This is not real. You get that, right?
Hubie Halloween. Give us a synopsis. I'd love to hear this.
I'm going to caveat this with mentioning this synopsis has more creative input and inspiration than the entire 102-minute runtime of the film we'll be discussing. Hubie Dubois thanklessly spends every Halloween making sure the residents of his hometown, the legendary Salem, Massachusetts, celebrate safely and play by the rules, despite being a figure of mockery for kids and adults alike. But this year, an escaped criminal and a mysterious new neighbor have Hubie on high alert. When people start disappearing, it's up to Hubie to convince the police and townsfolk that the monsters are real, and only he can stop them and save Halloween. So, I didn't laugh once. I was ready to turn it off 10 minutes in, and that about does me for the podcast. I thought you were going to break me with the Human Centipede 2, but you actually did with this movie.
Jackson, come on. You got to get off your high. I'm going to use this time on this podcast to convince you that the film isn't that bad, okay? That's what I'm going to try and do now, because we know where your headspace is at. Tell me, why didn't you laugh? Why didn't you just sit back and embrace the stupidity that was on display here?
I went into this with no previous expectations, obviously knowing that a lot of these recent Adam Sandler comedies haven't hit. Not one joke was clever. I didn't chuckle. I was barely cracking a smile.
So you're not a fart joke guy?
I'm not a fart joke guy. The only interesting jokes we had throughout were hammered to death. So when Hubie's riding around in his bicycle and he's constantly dodging items, okay, I might have smirked it the first or second time, and there were some creative things being tossed in.
And then he started vomiting. Come on. You didn't laugh?
No way. That's so tasteless.
My God.
And every ounce of this movie was so mean-spirited. Why did Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems was hard enough to understand, but here he was basically unintelligible. You're talking to a guy that loves Tom Hardy putting on a silly accent, but this is something else. This is just ridiculous.
Who was easier to hear? Tom Hardy as Bane or Adam Sandler as Hubie Dubois?
Tom Hardy as Bane, 10 out of 10 every single time. Not one, none of this was enjoyable. I couldn't believe it that I felt like when things were starting to wrap up, the second act going into the third, I honestly pulled my phone out and I was in shock that we still had half an hour left to go.
I did the same thing.
It ran out of steam so quickly.
I did the
same.
So
quickly.
Yeah.
There was not enough content in here, and anything that was just so lazy. The only redeeming elements were that I was slightly impressed by the production design. I'm shocked that they didn't take another trip to Hawaii to shoot a film.
What's funny is the director of this...
Well, not this movie, that's for sure.
Stephen Brill. He did Wedding Singer. He's done a couple of his classics. Did he do Happy Gilmore?
He did not do The Wedding Singer, no.
Oh, he did.
And he did not do Happy Gilmore. I believe you might be confusing Stephen Brill with Dennis Dugan, who has also directed many of Adam Sandler's comedies.
So
when we look through what Stephen Brill has directed, we're looking at movies such as Little Nicky, Mr. Deeds.
Okay, yeah.
Do-Over, Sandy Wexler, and now Hubie Halloween.
So he's done
This
a few.
bloke-
Yeah.
This bloke hasn't got a great track record. More power to him for actually getting out there and shooting films and clearly having a close relationship with Adam Sandler. So at least he's going to get work. But this is so terrible.
So none of the jokes landed.
Not one joke had me laughing. Not one joke. I laughed more
Really?
during the Human Centipede 2 than this. I want to hear your thoughts.
Man.
Our listeners can only hear me ranting for so long, despite how entertaining it might be.
All right.
And I don't need to burst any more blood vessels about this shit show. Please, Dan Allen Movies, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, I embraced it for what it was. It's a stupid movie, that's for sure. And the expectations were severely low going in because I'm a massive Adam Sandler man. Love him. I've been going back, as I told you, I've watched Anger Management recently, Happy Gilmore, watched Uncut Gems, what else? Big Daddy. Some of the classics I've gone back, and I always do every few years because they always make me laugh. A bit like Friends, you know, how that's so beloved for a lot of people. But as the years go on, it seems to dwindle a little bit. His Netflix special was quite funny, I have to say. That got good reviews. And then he followed it up with Uncut Gems, which got great reviews, showed his acting chops, but then he goes back to this, which is just bizarre. But yeah, I don't know. I think it comes down to the fact that he literally just wants to hang out with his family, and they're all in the film. His wife, his kids, they're all thrown in. He wants to hang out with his friends, and he wants to get paid doing it. And I can't knock the guy. I've said it here on the pod before. The guy's living the dream. You gotta respect him.
I'm not going to knock the bloke either, but
he's making bank.
I'm going to knock this obnoxious pile of shit, and he's churning it out year after year after year. And
People are watching it, Jackson.
I know, and it's shocking. It's terrible. Why can't they go out and watch something else? Why does it have to be this? If this were at the cinemas, we can't imagine people are going to go see it.
It's because of him. People love him. I don't think you understand how loved this guy is.
do. I completely do. I enjoy Adam Sandler.
Look at these, and people were getting a kick out of all the Easter eggs. You know, Ben Stiller at the start, reprising his role from Happy Gilmore.
Oh, what's that scene? What's the scene from Happy Gilmore? That's probably that's only one of the... Like, I barely cracked up at the start, but at least they got that reference shoehorned out of the way.
Sir, could I trouble you for a glass of warm milk? It helps put me to sleep.
You could trouble me for a warm glass of shut the hell up. Now you can go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep.
We'll put you to
Like,
sleep.
okay, we bring back this cameo, but even this was totally just crowbarred into the movie, and it wasn't funny. They had nothing interesting to do.
Well, even Julie Bowen is back. She was the love interest from Happy Gilmore. You've got Steve Buscemi, who's in a lot of Adam's films. You've got Rob Schneider, of course. Maya Rudolph.
We can't forget Kevin James and his terrible wig.
Oh, he was funny. And I think he's one of the worst actors ever. All his films are terrible. He doesn't usually make me laugh, but he got me here. And
I don't know how. Nothing is funny.
Shaquille O'Neal was there. You know, all the classics were there. Even some
Classics?
of the real side characters. Yeah, classics. They're always in his films, man. They always pop up. They're classics.
Just because they pop up, that doesn't make them classics.
Even the guy in 50 First Dates, the dad of Drew Barrymore's character, is the owner of the restaurant in this one. Just for a sneak peek there, he's a bit of an asshole, but yeah, they're all back. I love it. I'd love to be a part of this crew. So, like, it's just, you could just tell they're having a blast doing it.
Well, who wouldn't? But it's just such
the
crap.
families are loving it, mate.
You just enjoy this. I don't know why. Like, why are we even covering it?
Literally on Facebook, there's 4,000 comments. They're all nice, saying thank you. My kids loved it. This was so funny. It's a kids movie. It's a family/kids film.
It's poisoning your brain.
How? It's not doing anything, that bad. I mean,
it's pretty mean-spirited.
Parents,
the whole way throughout until the final 5 minutes of the film.
It's got an underlying good message about bullying.
We have next to all the characters are shocking, and the female characters especially have nothing to do. Poor Julie Bowen. I think the point, you know what? 10 minutes in, the point where I was ready to switch it off, that first run-in Adam Sandler's Hubie has with Julie Bowen's Violet Valentine at the diner, that was it. That was like, okay, I'm turning this off right now, because it was such a cringeworthy and awkward exchange.
The people are loving it, and like I said, it's a kids' film, Jackson. It really is. There's nothing too crude, and even the message. There's a sweet message in it, where they're pretty much saying no matter who you are, what your appearance is, what you sound like, you can be anything, you can fit in, blah blah blah, and it works for kids.
Whatever. Who's the bigger loser? Hubie and Hubie Halloween, or Martin from the Human Centipede 2?
Okay, tell me this. Did you not laugh at his mum and the ridiculous shirt she had on? Please tell me.
Not even one.
That really got me.
Not
Some
even
of the
one.
T-shirts you had.
You have such a shallow
man,
and
it was so
and such a
funny.
poor taste of humor. I am personally attacking you now. After you've wasted over 3 hours
man.
of my life watching this in the Human Centipede 2, I'm coming for you, Dan Allen movies. If you if you hear a bump in the night, you know who it is.
Well, you've already seen my rating, so you know I didn't really praise it that much.
So have all the listeners.
I'm playing I'm playing devil's advocate here for the sake of the show. I didn't really like it either, to be fair. I thought the jokes did fall flat for the majority, because there are jokes coming at you every second nearly.
It's meant to be laugh a minute, but nothing lands.
But it's very hit and miss, and a lot of it is potty humor, but some of it hits for me, like the opening. His voice does get a little bit annoying towards the end, I don't know why he has to put on this voice for all these films. It's funny to look back on, but it is like he's trolling the world with how dumb and stupid these films are.
He's a man approaching his 60s. Has he not got any new material? Because the guy was doing this 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, people turn up, and it's just like Murder Mystery. It's got like 100 million plays now. It's insane.
We said it was recorded back in 2019. 83 million. Who are these people watching?
It's probably
this shit?
well over 100 now. So
easily.
it's pretty insane. Even I couldn't believe how many people were loving the film on Facebook and that. But yeah, I mean, I want to hear, what do the ratings have to say, Jackson?
Jackson's ratings.
IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, audience score, and Letterboxd.
Do you want to roll with a spoiler alert, or are we just going to get right into it?
I don't think we need spoilers for this film, but I'll play the cue anyway. Spoiler alert.
Oh, it's a We Watch This Podcast medley. All right, we didn't say it at the top. What month is it, Dan Allen Movies?
It's Spooktober.
The moment we saw this escaped mental patient and the moment we saw blonde hair, who did your mind immediately go to?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
You're not looking at that and going, it's either Rob Schneider or David Spade?
Yeah, I thought it was David Spade, actually. So I was actually taken back when it was revealed who it really was.
Clever is too strong a word, but there were some moments that it looked like, that actually spent more than a few days working on the script. And the production design, it wasn't the worst I've ever seen. I was expecting far lazier, although it's very disappointing that Steve Buscemi was not dressed up in full wolf makeup. You've already played the cue. Let's go with the ratings and continue to torture my poor soul. IMDb has this 5.3 out of 10 from 13,296 user ratings. The 13,296 people who scored this one, what were you thinking? 5.3 out of 10? I mean, is this being graded on the curve of recent Adam Sandler films? Because in that case, it's probably like an 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Keep going. I'm not going to rebut that.
Thank you very much.
You're too
I'm
far
glad,
gone.
I'm glad
You're
we
too
can
far
agree on
gone.
something.
You're too far gone.
You said that you were going to challenge my opinion on this movie, but I think you've already thrown in the towel. 35 episodes
I have.
in.
I'm not
I've
changing your
broken you.
mind. I'm not changing your mind.
The tomato meter has failed me. 51% of critics have given this a positive review. 47 critic reviews collated so far. An average rating, almost identical to IMDb, 5.2.
Yeah, this would be... If we were on the Rotten Tomato here, I would struggle to give this one a fresh. I'd think about it, but I probably wouldn't in the end.
It's a fresh rating. Like, is just the bar set that low?
50%
like you said,
is
with rock bottom.
You know what? It's probably just 2020, and the fact that it's so stupid, and some people might have got a laugh because there's not many comedies. It might have got some lenience in that way.
It's a fair point. The audience score. 52% of audiences gave this a score of 3.5 out of 5 or more. Average rating 3.16 out of 5. 588 audience scores so far on that website. Again, 52% of audiences giving this 3.5 out of 5 or more. It's got to be some review bombing going on there. Come on, people. What is wrong with you? Metacritic, 53 Metascore based on 19 critic reviews, 5.3 out of 10 user score from 43 ratings so far. This is all matching up. Everyone's got this around, 50%, 5 out of 3. What were you watching? Finally, they who shall not be named, please don't fail us during Spooktober. 2.5 out of 5. It's been watched by 23,229 members and liked by 4,273 of them. People are checking it out. I guess they're so bored there's nothing else coming out, at least not for a few more weeks here in Spooktober, and we're going to touch on at the very end of this episode what we've got coming up for our listeners, but it's just what's going on with people.
Tell you,
why has this got these at least average or good ratings? I don't get it.
I'll tell you why it's not as low as you would have hoped. One, the Adam Sandler fans are out. They can't give him lower than a 4 or 5. I might be one of those. Two, 2020. People are a little bit more lenient. And 3, general moviegoers are actually finding this pretty entertaining. Not too bad. So
they're eating it up. I don't know what's wrong with them. It's just...
Well, there's all these people. You got to think, half of these people didn't watch all of his films. Like, they haven't watched The Do-Over. They haven't watched Ridiculous 6, 7, whatever it's called. You haven't either, have you? So you can't
God,
talk.
no. I don't think I've watched... Aside from Uncut Gems, I don't believe I've watched any Adam Sandler films in the last 7-8 years.
They're going in remembering, Happy Gilmore and remembering some of the throwbacks here, and they're going, oh, this is bringing back memories to this nostalgic point in my life. This is hitting a nerve. My kids are loving it. Bang. Would I recommend the film to our listeners? Definitely not. Knowing our listener, we've covered The Lighthouse, Midsummer. We're fucking... We're going all in deep. We're going to cover Interstellar, Space Odyssey, the film's...
Listeners, if you have those Dan Allen movie bingo cards out, now's the time to start ticking those boxes. We've had Nolan, we've had Kubrick. It just goes on.
Yeah. Oh, I need to do one for you, Jackson, a bingo. What are we going to get on that one? David Lynch, A24. What else have we got in there? Depraved, yep. A DJ.
Wanting to do the movie challenge, Dan Allen movies, not wanting to do the movie challenge. I might not ever want to do it again after the next few weeks in Spooktober, I'll tell you that much.
What are the redeeming factors of the film?
The production design wasn't as lazy as I thought. So I guess that's a backhanded compliment.
That's about it. Cinematography? Feasible?
It was lacking really any good taste. But considering other Adam Sandler comedies, like That's My Boy or Jack and Jill, it could have been a heck of a lot worse.
I got to ask, so you did make it through the end? If I asked you what happened at the end, you'd be able to tell me?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, and you know what? Another redeeming factor, the ending, we're in spoiler territory, was a nod to Friday the 13th. So I'll pay that.
What about Ray Liotta? What'd you think of him in this film? Or were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised to see him here, but it was still just as disappointing.
What about Steve Buscemi as the wolf?
He definitely doesn't need to be doing it at this point in his career, but he's shown up in this Adam Sandler comedy since, he was definitely, was he in Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison? It was Billy Madison.
He's been
That's
in
the one
everything.
that's the one I'm thinking of. Who doesn't love Steve Buscemi? You can't hold it against the guy.
Do you know that I had a Facebook page with Tom where it was we post a picture of him every day. It had like 25,000 likes. All it was posting the same picture of Steve Buscemi every day. 25,000 likes on the page.
Did I know? Am I not one of the top fans on that Facebook page? Please, listeners, go check out the same photo of Steve Buscemi every day. There's a plug and a half for you.
Never thought you'd get... hey, mate, can you please divert the plugs to the PS5 Central podcast, where we talk about the latest PS5 news and info and leaks and rumors.
Or go check out the same photo of Steve Buscemi every day.
What's better content? Don't ask Jackson, because it won't be a good answer for me. Rob Schneider, did you watch did we cover the last film with Rob and David Spade earlier this year?
The Wrong Missy?
The Wrong Missy. We didn't cover that, did we?
God, no. And I don't know why we covered this.
You haven't seen it, have you?
What do you think?
Rob was classic in that. I love Rob. Rob Schneider, man. This is why Adam Sandler's movies are pretty funny. Maybe not as much these days. Because of the side characters, the classic characters. I'm saying Shaq comes in. He has this woman voice. That was a gag. You had his mum with the t-shirts. That was a funny gag. You had the flask. The what do you call it? What's Adam Sandler's
Thermos.
I'm drawing a blank. The amount of times I went back to the well on that was probably a little bit too much. And then you had Steve Buscemi, Ray Liotta. I ate it up in the best way I could, but in the end, I didn't give it a big rating. So, Jackson, do you have any final thoughts, final words on this film? Because I don't want to stretch this too long, because I know that you don't have much else to say, but you didn't like it.
We give 0 out of 10 here at the podcast.
Do we?
Can we?
No, we can't.
Okay. Well, in that case, it's a 2 out of 10 porn maze kidnappings.
Yeah.
I've made my thoughts very well known here in the last half an hour. For you, our faithful listeners, we don't need to beat a dead horse. I didn't like it. I don't recommend it. Please do yourself a favor and go watch another comedy horror, which we'll be talking about in a future mini-sode. That's One Cut of the Dead. And avoid Hubie Halloween at all costs.
You are at all costs. You where does this rank in your worst films of the year? Second or third?
It's on equal footing with 365 days.
So second or third?
This is going second. I'd probably put this a rung below 365 days. Both of them had some creative merit, but it was so low and so lazy and so uninspired that it's terrible. At least 365 days, I was able to laugh at more sequences than I was in this. That movie failed.
You're laughing at it. You're not laughing with it.
That's right. That movie failed to be an erotic drama, and this failed to be a comedy.
That's totally subjective, though. So you can't go out there saying that is a fact. It's not a fact. It might not be a fact, but it is my educated opinion. Well, I'll agree with your educated opinion that it wasn't a great comedy. I gave it in the end a 5 out of 10, as most of already posted 24 hours before this podcast came out for some reason. Marketing genius, but 5 out of 10 from me. It 1 points over with the Ben Stiller gag, the t-shirt, because some of the gags I actually laughed. In 2020...
Can you name 5 gags that won you over to make up for your 5 out of 10?
All right, so the t-shirts with the mum for sure, at least 3 or 4 times.
That's one.
Okay, Shaquille O'Neal with the voice. That's 2. For some reason that got me, and him with his wife macking on. Number 3 is the opening scene where he's being thrown, and then he vomits. It's so stupid. Kevin
three.
James. Few scenes with Kevin James.
That's 4.
And 5. I'm struggling now. 5 would have to be the scene where Adam screams in the haunted house. For some reason, that got me. Where it's just, and some of the let's just say some of the screams that he does throughout, like, it's so ridiculous, so stupid that I couldn't help but have a little laugh. So, there's a few jokes in there, but at the end of the day,
5.
I'm not going to give Adam worse than a 3 or 4. I ended up giving this a 5. I was generous. I know I'm generous on the rating, but at the end of the day, a 4 out of 10 for me is a bad film. I don't think this was a bad film because the target audience is not me. It's the kids. It's the families. And would I watch this if I had kids? Would I put this on and would they laugh? Yeah, they probably would. Now, maybe I'm contradicting myself because the Lighthouse...
You definitely are.
The Lighthouse wasn't made for me and I still gave that a bad rating. But, it's my show. It's our show, Jackson. We can say whatever the fuck we want, baby.
You said it. None of it's fact. It's subjective. If you disagree with us, please take the time to reach out to us on our social media at We Watch This Podcast.
All right, Jackson. So that's going to come in at a 7 out of 20, which is going to
What
be...
does that round down to, Dan Allen Movies?
It's going to be a 2 out of 5, is it?
It's not going to be a 2 out of 5. Your math's a little bit off there.
3 out of 10.
It's actually going to come down to a 3 out of 10. And we ran that again for our Letterboxd listeners. That's 1.5 out of 5. I believe this puts it in almost the same territory as Capone.
Jeez. Would you watch Capone over this again?
Ooh, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Which way do you want to be depraved?
Which has the sillier voice?
Oh, man. Far out.
Which has the worst shit jokes?
You know what? 2020, we picked a terrible year to start a movie podcast.
This is the worst. You said that we're coming up to having done this for 12 months. It feels like 12 years.
Tenet's the best year.
Garbage.
Tenet's the best film of the year. We haven't even seen it. We can't leave our houses. So it's Hamilton, which is a fucking musical, is the best film of the year. It's not even a film. That's the year we're in, Jackson. Oh,
when you're playing a movie on your fucking telephone.
Hey, what was that joke I sent you before? Let's play the cue to give it some context.
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
The review was, this was the one film David Lynch wishes he saw on his iPhone. And it was a 1 out of 10, I think. Oh,
I'd be embarrassed to be caught watching this on my phone in public. I'd rather be caught hands in my pants than watch this in public.
Oh no, Jackson. All right, before we get into your review for the Human Centipede, is there anything else you've watched this week that you can talk about with a lighter voice, a lighter tone?
There is something, Dan Allen Movies, that we are going to be far more positive about for our faithful listeners. However, they're going to have to wait for our forthcoming mini-sode. So on that
Fourth?
note,
I thought it was 5th.
I said forthcoming. Do you ever listen?
I don't listen.
No,
well,
you
I want to recommend something for our listeners.
Please.
The Haunting of Hill House, the TV show from 2018. Not new. I mean, the new season's come out of Bly Manor, I think it's called, but this is the previous season, previous version from a couple of years ago. Absolutely loving it. It's really coming together. 5 episodes now. I think there's 10. It's about halfway through and really enjoying that film. I also went back and watched The Dark Knight Rises.
The fire rises.
Oh, I'm struggling. Is it a 9 or a 10? I'm battling. As a massive Batman fan, just the music.
There's another cross on your bingo card, listeners.
There's the cross. Hold on. Is Joel Edgerton in that? No, he isn't. But I said his name.
He is now.
Well, now I just want to tick off everything on the list. Yeah, Hugh Jackman was not in it either. But yeah, The Dark Knight Rises, it gets a lot of slack.
Bingo.
It gets a lot of slack because I think it's a phenomenal, epic piece of film.
I can't believe you've managed to wedge
I don't care,
review of The Dark Knight Rises.
It's our show, bro. It's our show. We'll fill the time the way we want. People love it when I talk about a Nolan film. That's why they keep coming back, don't you guys? Let Jackson know you love the Nolan talk. But no, I just happened to watch it. Seriously, I just happened to watch The Dark Knight Rises for whatever reason, and loved it. So, it's so
Surprise.
epic. Anyway, and I also watched Hans Zimmer's Live in Prague Blu-ray. Oh, Jesus, what a master of a composer that guy is. I highly recommend that. But anyway,
sounds like an emotional roller coaster.
I haven't watched many films, to be honest. Like, I went back, and from Buffalo to It Follows was about 10 days of vacancy in any film watching. So I'm here now. Jackson, okay. We've been waiting for it. I put you through the ringer.
Part 1 of Dan's Inferno, the Halloween Revenge Tour. For some context for our listeners, I set the challenge. I told Dan that after he'd been subjected and tortured, according to him, with some shocking films, again, his opinion, subjective according to him, that in order for the movie challenge to return, I would go through even more pain. So across the next 4 weeks, throughout the remainder of Spooktober...
3 more. He's got to endure 3 more.
3 more in Spooktober.
Sorry, what was that? Spooktober?
And he started things off with the Human Centipede 2 full sequence.
Oh.
Last week, Dan Allen Movies, you asked me, have I seen any of the Human Centipede films? What was my answer?
You'd tell me next week.
I told you I'd seen one of them. I'd tell you next week. Which film had I seen?
I think you'd seen number 1.
One more guess.
Number 3.
I knew exactly what I was in for when I sat down to watch the Human Centipede 2 for the second time.
Oh, no.
For our listeners who aren't aware, this movie is banned in Australia and New Zealand. And if I could, right, it's just going to sound, in fact, it's not going to sound hypocritical. It is very hypocritical. While I'm not a fan of censorship, if I could have this film banned everywhere, I absolutely would. Dan Allen Movies, you told me off air that you had plenty of questions for me to answer. Please, fire away.
Walk me through it. Where were you when you watched it? Was the phone out? Tell me the ending. I need to know everything so I can verify you saw the film.
I first watched this, its initial release in 2011. A special shout out, Rochelle at the Movies, who joined us.
What?
For Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I actually watched this movie with her. She was kind enough to reach out to me and remind me, and I thought, oh my goodness, not only have I seen this, but I did watch it with her. And I remember it then, almost 10 years ago now, coming up to 10 years ago to the day. It was such an uncomfortable, disgusting, and vile watch. And it was just as horrendous and rough this second time around. I remember back then laughing throughout the first 10, 15 minutes, and it was the case here as well. It's so extreme and so ridiculous that you can't help but get lost at how unsettling and how silly it is. And then by the end of it, an hour and a half later, you, like the poor people in this 12-person centipede, have been tortured as much that you just can't continue on this awful journey. It's like watching The Wolf of Wall Street, where Martin Scott. I can't believe I'm actually comparing Tom Six, the director and writer of this, to Martin Scorsese. But it's like in The Wolf of Wall Street, where some of these sequences of Leo being coked out and looted out of his mind, they go from being funny to sad, then back to funny. But here, it's depraved and funny, and back to depraved. It's so violent and grotesque, and everything about it is just icky. I had to take a shower afterwards.
Tom Six should be shot on sight. That guy's a freak.
That's a bit extreme, and that's coming from a guy who just watched this movie.
What do you think of the film grain? The disgusting film, and the main lead, his disgusting look.
It's a brave performance for Lawrence R. Harvey, who would again return in the Human Centipede 3 final sequence, which there's no way I'll be watching him and Dita Lisa. It's not going to happen. Brave, I'll give him that. Is it entertaining? Maybe, but everything's so deplorable. It's almost
what happens.
Unwatchable. Almost unwatchable.
Tell us what happens, because I've got to verify you watched it. Walk us through.
I can't believe you've seen this. There's no way you've seen this.
I have.
You're laughing. I haven't asked you the question.
I have seen it.
I'm wagering you haven't watched this.
No, I have. I've seen it.
When did you watch this movie, Dan Allen?
I saw it about 2010. When did it come out?
2011.
Yeah, I would have seen it that year or maybe a year after. Yeah, haven't seen it since.
What did you think?
I thought it was the worst film I'd ever seen in my life. Yeah. Disgusting, deplorable, horrible. It should be deleted every frame.
It's like nails on a chalkboard. I'll admit, it's so extreme and so outrageous and ridiculous that by the end of it, you honestly can't believe what you have seen.
But
any critiques that it's aiming for, any social commentary, is totally blown out the window.
I think that the film is so grotesque and disgusting that it actually haunts me to this day. It's still in the recesses of my mind, and it's still lurking in there. I'm trying to eliminate it from my brain. It is that torturous. But Jackson, stop dodging the fucking question and tell us exactly what happened. Start, middle, and end. Because I need verification. If you haven't watched this, Jackson, you're in for another one. You get another one added in. It's as simple as that. I'm throwing you under the bus here, but I need verification that you watched it.
What do you mean you're throwing me under the bus here if I haven't watched it? If I have watched it, you're still going to give me another shocking film for next week. So what's the difference?
I'm going to add another one on. I'm going to add a fifth on.
Oh, so you're making the rules now?
Yeah, I am.
Just like that. Par for the course. Add it to your bingo cards, people. We don't discuss the segments ahead of time. He's making up more stuff on me. Anyway, Martin, who was... No, I was going to say it's assumed, but he definitely was sexually abused by his father as a young boy. Possibly has some kind of disability. I mean, this film is so exploitative, and it just goes for the lowest common denominator possible. Everything's awful. Oh, God. So... his life is total shambles. He works as a security guard, I suppose, or some kind of car police attendant somewhere in London. We don't really know. And he's so obsessed with the film that he has this big, giant scrapbook that, I mean, for such a gross and disgusting looking guy, has put some work and some effort into it. And he's not so bad at his drawing. So I'll give him that. And eventually, whether it's actually happening or not, fucking spoilers, who cares? You're not going to watch this film because we don't want you to. The whole thing might just be in his mind. It's so cheap by the end that it just pulls the rug out from under you. But anyway, and he comes up with a plan that if you can do it with three people, a three-person Siamese triplet from the first Human Centipede movie, why couldn't you do it with 12? So he starts kidnapping people from the car
park.
What's
his motivation? What is this guy's motivation?
You tell me, because I don't know where it is. His entire life is such a failure that he dedicates himself to creating this awful... evil is the best word project, and it doesn't even really work.
How does it all end in the end? Because I completely forgot.
A giant parade of shit and violence. The only color we see in the entire movie is shit splashing on the camera lens, and it's brown. It's the only color. It's shot in black and white, and it's just shit and diarrhea flying everywhere.
Oh.
I don't want to go into too much of the detail because it is so horrific and so gross. And there's this is going to make anyone who might have heard or seen this their skin crawl. But there's an escape sequence with a pregnant woman, and she ends up leaping into a car to get away. And I'm gonna leave it hanging right there, please. I implore you, do not endure any of these experiences from this week like I have, and do not seek out what I'm talking about with this film, listeners. My final rating for the Human Centipede 2, because I'm just about done. I need another shower here. 2 out of 10 Tarantino casting agents. Why is this a 2 out of 10 and not a 1? Because I actually did kind of laugh at some of the starting sequences, and it's so ambitious in how vile it is that by the end it kind of does earn points.
Oh, man. I gave
what a week it's been.
I gave part 1 and 2 both a 1 out of 10. Jackson, next week. Oh God. So
what have you got in store for me?
It's
part
not as
2.
bad. It's not as bad.
Dan's Inferno.
So this is a recent film, right? This is very recent, okay? And it's a film that was called a horror. It's not a horror film, okay?
But it will be horrific.
But it will be horrific viewing, okay? The film that you're going to be watching is Cats. Cats the musical. Woo! Here we go, baby. James Corden, Rebel Wilson, Idris Elba. A brilliant cast. Jason Derulo pops up. Cats. Jackson is contemplating if he wants to continue this podcast right now, which is what I did when he threw me under the bus with High Life.
I wish I hadn't already used up walking out of the studio gag, because it's even more pertinent right now than it was at the top.
Jackson, this is going to be, and this is complete honesty, this is going to be the best film you watch out of the 4. This is
that's saying something.
This is going to be the best. So enjoy this, because your final run home is absolutely shocking. Okay, so really soak this one up, mate, because this is the best it's going to get. Cats 2019. Wow. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. I have seen it. So everything I've given you so far, I've seen. So I know what you're in for. I've been there. Just remember that when you're watching this. I was there last year in the same position. All right, Jackson. I hope it's going to be worth it by the end to bring this movie challenge back.
Dan Allen Movies. Who do we have to thank for today's episode? It really has to be me for having come back, because I could have called this here at 35 episodes, 5 minisodes, and be done with it. But I haven't. I'm still around. I'll stick it out. Next week, listeners, I will be checking back in for part 2 of the Halloween Revenge Tour, aka Dan's Inferno, and that will be watching Cats. What else are we going to check out? What releases next week?
The Trial of the Chicago 7.
The new Aaron Sorkin film, written and directed, a courtroom drama starring Sacha Baron Cohen, who's also going to be in another episode here in October. You know what? Spoilers. I can't wait for the Trial of the Chicago 7. At least I'll finally be able to watch a half-decent flick.
Yeah, I've been hearing good things. So we're in for a good treat here. I've heard that this
Oscar contender?
Oscar contender. So we both look forward to watching that, and then Borat 2 shouldn't be too bad either. So we're in for a couple of good weeks, even though you're going to get the good with the bad, unfortunately.
Thank you, Sasha, 2020's savior, but not mine.
All right, Jackson, it's been an absolute pleasure to join you, as always, today. Where can the listeners find us on social?
Listeners, if you've enjoyed today's episode covering Hubie Halloween and briefly touching on the Human Centipede 2, we implore you to reach out to us on our social media. You can find us, the We Watch This Movie podcast, We Watch This podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, Twitter, even on TikTok. You can find him at Dan Allen Movies on the aforementioned socials. Myself at Marshall on Film, followed by an underscore at the aforementioned socials. For our listeners who are listening to us on their iPhones, on their Apples, we want you to hit subscribe and throw down a 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate it. It's the best way to spread the good word, and you may even get your name read out on the podcast. We would really appreciate it. Yet again, those on Spotify, hit follow, Google Podcasts, wherever you might be listening. We are on every single platform. With that, I am Marshall on Film. He is
Dan on the movies.
This has been the We Watch This podcast, and I need a sniff drink.